And so he waits until everything is impossible and then steps in so that you cannot, by any means, say, see, it was me. And we are a very delusional people. We love to believe that we have more to do with it than what we actually do. So our story starts out with Moses, and that was the disappointing part. Now the rest of it is really exciting. I had more people this week call me, talk to me, email me, saying, I'm so looking forward to this battle beginning. In fact, I got so many messages that way this week that I had to go back last night after the Scout event and look at my sermon again and rewrite part of it because I thought, this is not going to meet their expectations. So that's why you're getting a whole, no, I had all this stuff in there before. Actually, I cut it down some more. Thank you. So the mantle of leadership now has passed from Moses to Joshua, and Joshua certainly is that capable force. He is that warrior commander. He is that chosen of God. He is that one that has all of the gifts and talents poured into him by God to take on this task. The very first thing that he does, standing on the other side of the Jordan River from Jericho, he crosses the water. Now, unlike when they left Egypt, they have no army following them. They have no great force driving them out of the land. They're still about 3 million strong. A new 3 million, but they're 3 million strong. And they're ready to cross the Jordan River. Now, they could have made a bridge. They could have taken time and made rafts. They could have found another course. They could have waited until it wasn't spring and the stream was only from me to Christina. Then they could have walked across. But none of that was in God's plan. God's plan was to send them across when he did, probably in the midst of the flood stage. And again, he parts the waters. So much so that it piles the waters up upstream, and downstream it dries it all out. Enough that 3 million people can make their way across safely on dry land. And in the middle of that stream, you have the priest holding the Ark of the Covenant. Now there's some reasons for that. God's doing 3 things in that particular event. First of all, he's authorizing Moses' choice of Joshua as their leader. Now that's important, isn't it? You think if Moses had crossed the Jordan with them, that Joshua would have assumed leadership? Doubtful. You have the greatest pastor, preacher, prophet, leader, king of all times, Moses, that Joshua is going to always be second fiddle unless Moses physically isn't there. Okay, Moses is gone. They've crossed the Jordan. Now Joshua is in charge. So God pretty much lays his hands upon Joshua and says, you're it. Second, he wants to bolster the people's faith. He wants to make sure that they know that God is with them. Now, I don't know about you, but if God suddenly parts a river and I can walk across on dry land, I'm probably going to start getting the idea that maybe God is with us. Not only I am going to get that idea, but maybe the surrounding tribes, the surrounding people, because see, Canaan at that time was a lot of little cities. It wasn't this big unified country. They weren't going to war against an entire nation. They were going against all these individual cities. Now, don't you think for just a moment that if God suddenly stops the river at flood stage and the people walk across on dry land, that the cities that are surrounding there are going to get the idea, you know what, this isn't the people we want to mess with. They may not get the fact that God's the one doing it, but they certainly get the fact that this is not just a little nomadic tribe. Something special is happening with his people. Now, the people are going to know that. And so secondly, his purpose was to give them that faith. Let them know that he was with them. And third was to melt the heart of their enemies. Just looking out to bring about that kind of fear. Now, very first thing they do after they cross and the ark gets there and they set up an altar, the first city they encounter is Jericho. Come on. Enough of you went to Sunday school when you were kids and sang Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. Had no idea what fit meant. But you knew he won with a loud shout. Now, when I was growing up, in fact, until I actually did a lot of studying on this week, I always thought, okay, Jericho was like all of these other little cities that were around there at the time, built on a small knoll. You know, you always wanted the high ground. And it had a wall around it. Now, what we think of a wall isn't necessarily what they thought of a wall. A lot of times a wall was maybe this tall. Now, still, if an enemy had to go over that wall, that probably gave you a pretty good advantage at shooting them before they got over. Okay? Anybody climbing is at a disadvantage to those that are just standing there shooting. Right? Jericho was different. Now, remember what we said? When is it that God acts? When everything is what? Impossible, right? I want to show you a cross-section of the wall of Jericho because this was taken from an excavation. This is what it looked like. See all these people down here at the bottom? Okay. Those are the Israelites. Or at least we're going to make sure that we believe they're Israelites. There was a wall at the bottom. And then on top of this knoll, on top of that wall, there was another wall. Now, if they got up to the top of the first wall, that didn't get them very far, did it? So then they'd have to cross the second wall. And as they're going over that second wall, you've got all of the archers at the top firing down. How many are going to survive that? Not too many. Now, if they, by whatever chance, got over that second wall, notice where it puts them. It puts them in that green space. In military terms, they call that the kill zone, right? It's great if you can create a kill zone, a narrow passage that they have to pass through that is like, well, we'd say shooting ducks in a barrel. Okay? So they've got all of that. Now, if by any chance several of them got past that, they'd still have to go over that last wall. That's impenetrable. That's impossible. That is Jericho. So what's the solution? What's the military strategy that Joshua comes up with? Well, he listens to God, who's his strategist. And God says, I want you to just take all of your people, all of your warriors, and I want you to march around the city. For 6 days, I want you to march it around once. Then, on the 7th day, I want you to march around 7 times. And on the last time, I want you to shout and scream and blow the trumpets. And I'll take care of the rest. Now, if you're the Israelites, and you're facing the people of Jericho, and they've got this kind of a wall, you going to trust that plan? So you've got a lot more faith than I do. That doesn't sound like a good plan. But that was Joshua's plan. That was God's plan. And this is Joshua's first great test. Now there are those that would say, well, makes a nice Bible story, but where's the proof? And up until about 2 decades ago, there really wasn't much proof. And then they had archaeologists discover it. Kathleen Kenyon, an archaeologist, went through the dig, and she found the city of Jericho. Now, it was where they always thought that it was just deeper than what they thought. And when they got down, this is the wall that they found. They didn't find it in this condition, however. What they found were walls that had no stones on top of another. They were all broken down completely. And in the middle, they found that a great fire had swept through the city. And there was absolutely nothing left of the buildings. And in that is where they found all of the utensils and all of the stuff that archaeologists look for. Was it true?